Okay, so welcome to episode 5 of the Unit 3 Boxing Podcast. Today my guest is Irish Middleweight prospect Cillian Reardon. Cillian is due to have his 4th professional fight on Saturday the 24th of November in Drimnagh. Cillian, you're very welcome to the Unit 3 Boxing Podcast. So Cillian, you've been boxing about 8 years or so and pro the last year or so. Would you like to tell us a little bit about your kind of amateur career and how you came into the boxing world?
Yeah, so like probably my amateur career is it's probably like lost years for me for a little bit. So I got into boxing off my own bat when I was about 20.
Quite late for most of you.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, didn't have any real background in it. And then did it for 2 years or a year and a half, 2 years. And then moved out of the country for a year. So I was living in Spain then for a year, didn't box. So that first year and a half I did the novices and I did the intermediates, and then I came back and I did the intermediates again. But to be honest, I don't even remember who I boxed in that period. I don't remember much about it. The only thing that I know is that in that period of time the sport captured my imagination, or it was something that I decided I wanted to keep on with. Yeah, that's what I would say I got out of my amateur career more than winning anything or achieving anything. That's what I got out of that period of time.
Okay.
Yeah, then after that I was working on my career outside of boxing for a period of time. So I was doing an undergrad and I was doing a postgrad, so I was never really in a position where I could train to the level that's required to achieve at the top of either high level, either amateur or professional. But I was training with Steve O'Rourke. I met Steve O'Rourke just through mutual contact by accident. And I used to go down and work with him a few times a week when he was based in Raw Gym. So he didn't even have his own facility. There was no club. I was there because I was interested in the sport but had no real strategy or anything that I was trying to achieve. I just knew that I wanted to keep doing it. And then a few things seemed to kind of coalesce at the same time. Steve had a couple of different clubs that he started up, one in Drimnagh, then one in Cabra, and then they didn't last for whatever reason. Then he set up the one in Inchicore, and I boxed out of that for a couple of years. But again, can't remember. I don't think I had any fights on my card during that period of time. I think I had a couple of exhibitions and just trained away. Then I finished my postgrad. Suddenly my kind of life cleared up. I didn't have a load of spare time, but it was less fragmented. And something that had been said to me a lot of times from the beginning is my style was a lot more suited to the pro game. Steve gave me a push, said I think if you turned over professional, I think if you put in the time that you could put in now, you could actually make a dent in it. So you're out.
Wow. And so a few people who know this, but Cillian, you're actually the head of strength and conditioning with Leinster Rugby Club, which means you don't need to box. You have a very, very promising career and are kind of well thought of in that field. So why did you choose such a tough sport like boxing? If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it does make sense. I don't know is the answer. Like, again, I say I went down to start boxing off my own bat in Monkstown Boxing Club when I was 20, and for some reason I was attracted to it and kind of never fully drifted away from it, even though there were a lot of reasons why I might have at different times. I suppose one of the things that I really like about boxing is how far you can get on hard work and mindset as opposed to talent. It's not that talent doesn't mean anything, but and you see that in every area, in a lot of different sports. You see it in rugby as well. Hard work and mindset are probably the most valuable components, and probably the things that most guys can miss, or that you can sometimes see missing in really talented guys, especially talented kids. So I think boxing is really cool in that way, because it's such a kind of a stark demonstration of hard work mindset can overcome talent over and over. You know, there's so many guys out there who've been really good achievers, and not necessarily the most talented guys.
Yeah.
And that's true of everywhere, but it's in boxing paints a more obvious picture.
Mm.
Do you know?
And would you say that you're probably stronger in the hard work and mindset components than you are in the talent component?
Well, I hope so, because I'm not too strong on the talent component. But I think that's what I'm trying to be. I'm trying to leverage those things to try and help me and still bridge the gap on a lot of the other aspects as well. But I don't think I could have turned over professional 5 years ago or 6 years ago, maybe even 3 years ago, because I didn't have enough understanding of what mindset and talent and hard work actually means. Whereas now maybe I'm just finally starting to maybe get to a place where I can.
Okay.
I think maybe a lot of that's to do with what I've seen in Leinster, in rugby, where I'm dealing with guys who are legitimately successful at the pinnacle of their career or at the pinnacle of their industry. You know, some of the best players in the world, and what actually makes them the best players in the world, as opposed to just professional players, tends to be down the mindset sort of end more so than God-given gift sort of end, which is actually a really liberating thought, because you can't do much about your talent level, but you can do a lot about your hard work and the way you think about things. So you can bridge it. You actually have the tools to bridge a lot of gaps. Do you know?
I think that's a great message, especially for kids, as you said, coming up through the kind of ranks then.
Yeah, exactly. Then, so the earlier you can start to leverage those things, the bigger gains you make. And it took me 30 years to kind of work that out, so hopefully somebody else will work it out earlier.
Okay, brilliant. So as we mentioned then, so obviously you have a very demanding kind of professional life, and then obviously you've chosen a very demanding second professional career then as well. So how do you manage the time? Because full-time boxing is a job in itself, as is a full-time strength and conditioning coach.
Yeah. That's all true. You know, my work career job is demanding in terms of time and in terms of energy and in terms of, you know, there's travel and you're out of the country and stuff like that. So not everything lends itself to being able to pursue boxing professionally as well, but there's some practical advantages to having that kind of job as well. But first of all, you're in a building where you have top quality facilities and you have access to those, so you can maybe do some of your training there. You're exposed to guys, again, as I was saying, who are top level coaches and top level players in their area. There's a lot to be learned off those guys, even if it's not technical or tactical. You can learn a lot. And you know, Leinster's not a job where you're punching a clock between time to time. You have a project to manage. You're supposed to perform a role in helping these guys to get to a certain level so that we can go on and achieve the things that we want to achieve. But it's a really it's a very good workplace in the sense that you're encouraged to kind of go and explore other things as well. And you know, I think that this journey is the journey I'm having in boxing. I think that helps me to be a better coach in Leinster, and I think vice versa as well. I think what I've learned in Leinster is probably the only reason why I'm now in a position to be able to take that.
Okay.
So yeah, the two dovetail quite well. One thing that I suppose you do have to do, the only thing you really have to do is be super organised in terms of what you have to do, where, when you have to be there, how you're managing travel and getting everything else there, making sure that your food is prepped, all these kind of things that make sure that your two different projects just flow, you know?
Okay.
That'll be what I've learned from it.
Okay, very good. So they're quite supportive of it then?
Yeah, very much so.
Okay, brilliant. And then in terms of the two athletes, so you could spend a morning maybe in a Leinster strength and conditioning gym, and you could spend an afternoon in a boxing gym, working with kind of seeing two different types of athletes.
Yeah.
What would you say the main differences would be, I suppose, physically between a top level boxer and a top level rugby player, apart from size?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you know, I was actually having this weirdly in a completely different context, having this conversation with another guy one of the other coaches in the club, about how we should use specific strength exercises in our program, where that should sit in the program. And I don't know, I don't have a conclusion on it, but where I've kind of been operating up until this point is you have areas of general prep, and you know they're important, developing your general athletic components in a guy. And then you have the game itself, so whether that's boxing or rugby or whatever it is. And you also have a limited amount of time and a limited amount of training capacity. So, and you can definitely fill up that time with general prep, and you can fill up a lot more time with general prep. And you know that general prep, like having good levels of maximum strength, having good levels of power, having good aerobic and anaerobic fitness, and being able to repeat movements over and over again, you know that those translate to importance, or those translate to the sport. And then you know that the sport gives that player the specific skills, and kind of so the sport kind of bridges the gap between the training and the sport. I don't know if that means that there's no role for specific strength exercises, but I'd be cautious of taking time away from general prep to do specific strength exercises or specific conditioning exercises, unless I have a very good reason to believe that was going to transfer.
Okay.
Because within the constraints of the program, time, training capacity, all these other things, you're getting improvements out of general athletic preparation. You get improvements out of training for the game. That's a bit more grey. Once again, the middle is a bit more grey. So yeah, I think there probably is a role for it. I think I need to improve my knowledge on what that role is, but I think it's probably somewhere to tread cautiously.
Okay. So you would potentially believe that having any athlete just generally getting them fit and strong and in all those areas, and then keep the sport stuff for the sport?
Well, not keep it for the sport, maybe help to direct the way that your rugby training is going ahead, if it's rugby training, or that your boxing training is going ahead, so the training reflects the way you want to play the game.
Okay.
Like everything works back from how you want to box or how you want to play. Okay, well let's train that way. Okay, well then your different aspects of general prep feed that, and there's no such thing as a perfect athlete. There's always going to be somewhere within the general prep spectrum that you can be working. And you get bang for your buck off that. If you start to complicate it with specific strength exercises, I think you should have a good reason for it. And so anyway, it's somewhere that it's a kind of a subject that, as I say, I was chatting to somebody about, and we're thinking about introducing it with some guys in some contexts, but I definitely need to expand my own knowledge on it first.
Okay, very good. Okay, so Cillian, so you're only at the start of your professional career, but already you've seen some of the more difficult sides of professional boxing. So you've had fights cancelled, you've had opponents pulling out, you've boxed people of vastly different weights already. What have you found is helping to navigate the kind of tricky side of professional boxing? Because a lot of other guys would have thrown in the towel in your situation, I think.
Maybe, yeah. So I suppose I've been scheduled 6 times, and I've actually only managed to fight 3. Well, scheduled 7 times and fought 3, and I've 1 coming up. So 3 were dropped for various reasons, but including my debut. I remember being very disappointed about my debut in particular, but then I was also pretty new to the industry. Like I didn't know a lot of other professionals, and then the more you get into it, the more you see it's kind of just the nature of the game, particularly at the beginning end of it. And I feel like there's a bit of a shit fight maybe to kind of get up and establish yourself at a certain level, and then once you hit that level, then things probably professionalise a bit more. But in the meantime, you kind of pretty quickly I kind of realised, oh shit, this is what the first year is going to be like. And then you make a decision, okay, well the sands have shifted now. It's a different. You imagined that it was going to be one way. Now you know that it's going to be a different way. Can you live with that new picture? And I'm still very much in that, but every intention of seeing it through, you know.
Okay. And how did you actually find the whole process of making your debut when it actually come to fruition in terms of, you know, feeling smaller gloves and having to sell tickets and that whole process?
Yeah, doing the whole self-promotion stuff was not something that I'd done before, but something you have to do with boxing the way it is. I probably learned something out of it as well, like, you know, how do you manage a social media profile to your advantage without being a dickhead? Do you know what I mean? That kind of thing. And like, there's good learning in that because of the way the world is now. Do you know, that's actually there's value to that skill, even if I would have dismissed that before maybe. Smaller gloves, yeah, I probably should have actually worn smaller gloves at least for a bag session before. I remember getting the gloves on in the National Stadium for my debut and just I thought it felt really good, like your hands just fly with them compared to what you're used to. So yeah, that was a good thing. Fortunately I didn't get hit too much on my debut because that might have been the other end of that, but nothing really with a smaller glove, nothing to report really. That side of things. The biggest thing about making my debut was the fact that we had that big store in the Beast of the East at the time, and you know, there's question marks over whether opponents were making it in from wherever they were coming from. There's question marks about whether the event might be pulled because none of the ticket buyers could actually make it into Dublin. So I didn't actually know until about 2 hours before the fight that I was going to fight. I didn't know until I got in the ring who I was going to fight, and then it turned out to be a cruiserweight, or I don't know, I can't remember what it was. Anyway,
over 20 pounds heavier, wasn't he?
Yeah, something like that. But he actually suited me, because it allowed me just to get into my flow and be kind of the more mobile guy, which really suited me today, and then I ended up getting quite a lot of credit for it subsequently. So yeah, all's well that ends well, I suppose.
Okay, and you've been fortunate enough to get to box in quite a historic venue in York Hall.
Yeah.
How's that?
That was a really good learning experience to like box away from home, because you going away with just your coach, and then you do the whole weighting game when you're finishing the last day of your weight cut in a hotel somewhere. Your weigh-in then is on the same day as the fight, ended up being only a couple of hours before the fight.
Normally it's about 36 hours or so, 24 maybe.
Well, yeah, I mean, it varies so much, but that was on the short end. Then got in, didn't feel great, made a mistake in the second round, it got dropped. And you're under a bit of pressure then, especially in a 4-rounder, you lose 10-8, you have to win all the other rounds, you can't make another mistake then. But I learned a lot out of that, and I got a lot out of it by making a mistake, finding myself in an awkward position and digging my way out of it. And that's probably of the 3 fights the most valuable learning experience that I've had.
Okay. So we're just 3 weeks away now from your 4th, or your scheduled 4th anyway. On November 24th in Drimnagh. How are preparations going for that?
Really good. One of the big differences this camp is I had 3 days off after the last fight and came back in. So I came back in week 1, I was in really good condition. So there was no kind of, as I was saying to you before, there's no kind of 2 or 3 week period where you feel like you're trying to claw back. I just hit the ground running, and I was able to just build. So yeah, things are going really well. We're heading into like a heavy sparring period now for the next couple of weeks. Weight cut again during the last week, won't be too bad because I'm fighting in a catch weight of 73.4, and get my first 6-rounder in the bag and move onwards and upwards, I hope.
And do you normally have to cut much weight, or?
I've had to come down from as high as 78 to 72.5 before, but I promised myself I won't do that again, because like there's no reason for me to be up at 78.
You're naturally very lean anyway, so you'd be a lean 78.
Yeah, at 78 I was probably 78. When I was 78, I probably been taking the piss a little bit for a couple of weeks.
Okay.
I could be lean at 76 maybe, but it wasn't feeling good at 78. So
Okay.
finished that last fight anyway I was 73.5 or something the next morning, and my next camp was starting in 3 days. So I promised myself I wouldn't go above 75.5 at any point in this camp, and I only have to come down to 73.4, so it's not even really a weight cut.
You could do that tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. If I had to. So yeah, weight cut, and it takes something off my plate because I've got a consideration of stepping up from 4 rounds to 6 rounds. That's meaningful in itself, so it takes something off my plate at the other end. At least not to think about the weight cut too much.
Brilliant. It's a lot of discipline required for that, so well done.
Yeah, thanks.
So what would a typical week of training look like?
It varies for me. So it varied for me because of my work schedule. So work schedule will come first because that's how things are, you know. So you have a work schedule, and then I'll do a training plan at the start of every camp. Because here are the components that we need to box off throughout the training camp. That's what that will look week by week. So essentially, what I'll have at the beginning, and I'll have a schedule for work as well. So essentially, I'll have a set of things that I need to do in the week, and I'll have a work schedule, and then I'll create a training schedule around that works and also takes care of all the things that me and Steve have decided we needed to do that week, and call it into on Saturday and make sure that everything's set up.
Okay.
Work out which components I do on my own, like track session or strength stuff I do on my own, which components I need Steve, all my technical stuff, pads, any sparring that I do, Steve will be there, and which components we do as part of a group session, Vic or whoever, you know.
Okay.
And just have a pretty good strategy that way, you know.
Okay. So you mentioned Vic, so you've been sparring Victor Rabbi, the
Yeah.
UI light welterweight champion.
Yep.
So good sparring.
Good sparring with Vic. Actually, I feel like Vic's taken another step up against me, so he took a few weeks off, he came back, he just seems to come straight back into it. He doesn't have that rustiness
Okay.
that I feel like I have after having a couple of weeks off. Yeah, Vic's a great training partner. He's quite technical, and technical ability is one of the gaps that I need to bridge. So training with Vic he's a really good training tool for me.
And can you mention your coach Stephen O'Rourke?
Yeah.
He's a thriving gym at the moment. You know, that's Tony Brown winning big tournaments, and Craig McCarthy, Dylan Moore, and it's always packed.
Yeah.
How do you find training in that environment?
I really like it. I like it more because I was in his other gyms in Ranelagh and Cabra. I was in this gym at the start, and you've kind of seen it grow and evolve from being an amateur gym with other guys like me who were kind of not the most active amateurs in the world, to being a pro gym with a couple of elite amateurs, like Son Ryan, kind of around that area as well. To being somewhere now that other guys will come down, like Gary Cully, Dylan Moore will come up from Waterford, Craig McCarthy travels up from Waterford. It's kind of becoming a hub of good quality sparring, you know.
Brilliant. Okay, Cillian, so obviously you have a very deep understanding of strength and conditioning through your years of experience and kind of numerous qualifications, so you know how a top level athlete should train. So would you be able to give maybe boxers and coaches 2 to 3 recommendations on how they should properly train? Is there any mistakes that you see a lot of boxing kind of coaches making?
I don't know if it's as much a mistake, it's just maybe a cultural thing, but one of the things that I think is really valuable is when you get your basic general athletic prep down early. So
what would that mean then?
So
specifically,
what that means is start early, start young. It doesn't mean start lifting a lot of weights young. You know, probably could spend another podcast talking about what the strategies behind it are, but as a general principle, develop guys' ability, develop their aerobic system, develop their anaerobic system, develop their muscular capacity, and develop power strategically, and do it early so you can spend less time doing that later. Because first of all, you get the biggest gains earlier on when guys are younger, and you don't want to find yourself in a position which you can see where guys have loads of technical ability and they're not strong or conditioned enough to make it tell. that's a shame, you know. So yeah, get that down early. One of the things that I've benefited from is that I have a good background in strength and conditioning, and now I probably spend less than an hour a week actually concentrating on the strength side of things, and I get most of my conditioning through boxing. So maybe between, you know, actual strength and actual, you know, running and conditioning training, maybe 2 hours a week, and then the rest of it I can just box and accumulate more training effects from that. But that's because I have the base down. You don't want to be in a camp preparing for a fight and finding that you're not strong or powerful.
Okay. Or fit enough.
Or fit enough, for sure. If you have strength and power, you can get fit, you can develop capacity in a reasonably short period of time. But if you don't have enough strength or enough power to even do something once, how are you going to develop repeatability on it? So to get that stuff down early. What else would I say? One of the things that, the other big thing I suppose that I've learned as I've got older is I would have done very little stretching or recovery or even consider that when I was young, because you don't suffer, or you feel like you don't suffer. And then one of the things I do most of now is recovering really well, making sure that I get to my next training session in the best possible condition I can. Because I don't get away with it anymore, but I would get those habits in early. Also get your ability to recover, so stuff like, you know, having good flexibility so that when you stretch it's not this big traumatic event, which it is for me now, you know. But so yeah, just develop those skills, develop those habits.
What kind of recovery work would you do? Or would you advise people to do?
Certainly stretching or some variation. So whether it's yoga or whether you just do your own stretching, or you can just, you know, go on YouTube and look at some stretch flows and work it out. Basically, all you need to do is find stuff that makes you feel good and do that. Because when, you know, and I suppose some of the other stuff I do some ice baths intermittently.
How do you find them?
Good. Make my legs feel good. Like, again, the science around some of this stuff, the science around stretching and flexibility is pretty clear. The science around ice baths, you know, not so much. But if you get in an ice bath and it makes you feel good, then that's a good thing. So yeah, find what works for you and do it regularly and build it into your program as part of the strategic development of a guy. Don't just kind of ad hoc it. You know, that'll be the advice I give.
Okay, so trying to get an athlete's foundations done quite early in their training life, and a little bit more focus on recovery.
Yeah, and I'd say it's good advice for any kids. Get their basic athletic foundation down, and then whatever decisions they make about what sport they're going to get to, would you teach them up properly. So I mean that should be something that we do with all kids, really.
Okay, brilliant.
You know, it would benefit everyone. But
excellent. Okay, Cillian, so I just have a few rapid fire questions for you.
Alright.
So if you were to become a boxing manager and you could sign any two rugby players, any one or two rugby players you wanted to turn over to be professional boxers, who would you choose and why?
I would choose Sonny Bill Williams, because he's done it.
Yeah.
And the other one I'd choose would be Joe Tamati, who came to Leinster this year, had done a bit of boxing as kind of, I don't know really in what context, when he was playing in France, and just blew me away with how good his skills were on it. So yeah, those would be the two.
Okay. Would you take Joe Tamati?
Yeah, I'd back myself.
Okay. Next question: who is the hardest worker in O'Rourke's gym? I'm just on a side note here. Is Tony Brown said that's him?
Tony Brown said it's him. See, I don't know. I don't want to be overly political, but I really don't know, because they train on different schedules. Like, I think, you know, everyone probably thinks they work really hard. Maybe it is Tony. He spends a lot of time there. He seems to always be in and out of the place. I don't have enough information to take that away from him, but I'm not conceding yet.
Okay. So in terms of food then, so what are you going to eat the day after your fight?
Bunsen used to be the one that I go to every time, but recently discovered kind of the chicken equivalent of Bunsen Mad Egg. Have you been there?
No, not yet. No, I've heard a lot about it.
You should certainly go there. I think that's where I'll be on the 25th of November.
Okay, so we can find Cillian Reardon on the 25th of November. Cillian, I want to say thank you very much. You shared a lot of great knowledge there, and I wish you the best of luck for November 24th. Okay.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you very much. Okay.